Hello guys, and welcome to a new Broken Arrow video today by me, Vulcan. In this one I'm going to be creating a brand new American battle group. If you watched my last video on the Russian battle group, you'll know the drill, but if you didn't, I'm making this video to not only show off the units available, but also give you guys some tips and tricks on some of the units I think you might want to pay attention to in the open beta and how they work. I won't be going into detail on every single unit, because of course you guys can do that on the 31st of January when the open beta will be available for a couple of weeks, so definitely make sure to check it out. And I will say that I don't have all the knowledge of this game, so if you're watching and think I missed something or got something wrong, or you feel like there's something that people should know, then feel free to share it in the comments so that we can all learn together. But let's go ahead and start building this American battle group. We have our two specializations here. The first is the US Marine Corps and the second is the Armored Brigade. So let's click create and jump on in. I'm just going to select this Cavalry Scout unit. I'll quickly take you guys through the right hand side once again. On this panel we have quite a lot of information. We have first of all the armor points, then the health points, the squad size, the optics, higher is better, stealth, higher is better, the speed of a unit, how much they weigh, and that's useful for when they need to be carried around, the abilities they have, so in this case sprint and smoke, then the price and obviously the name of the unit. Underneath we have the types of weapons that they have. Some units will have customization available, so in this case we got green ops and black ops loadouts for the Force Recon. For the vehicles, they do have armor values shown at the top. White value is kinetic, orange value is heat. They also have forward and reverse speeds. In this case, the AMPV also has a seat number, so how many troops they can carry. And quite often vehicles have a decent amount of customization, also including camo. And that's pretty much it. So let's go ahead and start building a battle group here, starting in this recon. The way that I like to do this is select all the units that I think I'm going to want to use, and then add extra of each unit until I fill up the tab, basically. So what we're going to do is start off with the Cavalry Scouts, and the Cavalry Scouts do get a Javelin. And the Javelin is a top attack A-to-gem, which is really, really effective. So I think it is worth bringing them, and I'm actually going to be bringing them in the M1283 AMPV because this thing can be upgraded to have a Bushmaster cannon and a Javelin itself. So you can double up on the Javelins, which can be really, really handy. And then you can also pop some reactive armor on it, and the reactive armor will increase the kinetic and heat armor on the fronts and side. So really, really nice unit. So we're going to pump that in there. And the nice thing about the AMPV, it can carry 6 men. So we only need one of those for every 2 squads. And if I want to, I can add like 4 squads of Cavalry Scouts total. And then I'll only need 2 AMPVs. But we'll come back to that in just a moment. Because as I said, I like to make sure I'm adding each of the units first and then, you know, designate which ones I want more of. So in terms of the Force Recon here, they come in 2 loadouts. They're a 6-man squad. They have the Black Ops loadout, which gives them the Mark 18 and a couple of the shotguns there. That's going to make them better at close range against enemy infantry. Their damage is significantly better, but it's within 300 meters range. And they have the M72 Law as their AT weapon, which is not a fantastic launcher. Or you can have the Green Ops, which is the M27. They get 2 grenade launchers, they get 4 DMRs, and then they have the AT4, which is a significantly better launcher with 450 millimeters of heat penetration. So a great unit for sneaking around in the back line and pop in units whilst providing decent recon. So we will add these in, and we're going to bring them in with the just Humvee so that we can zoom them into the back line. There's also potential for bringing in the LAV with the Bushmaster cannon if you want it. but in this case we're just going to keep the recon or keep the transport cheap. You can technically make it more expensive if you want to add like a 50 cal on it. That will certainly improve its effectiveness quite substantially. In this case I think I'm actually just going to put the minigun on it. So let's pop the Humvee with the minigun in there. Then we have the Scout Snipers. Really good squad because they have 3 stealth, which is the highest value stealth, I believe, and really allows you to get some good information in the backline. Once again, Humvee's good enough to get them there, so we're just going to upgrade this Humvee with a minigun and have some Sniper Scouts. After that, we have the IFAV-M2. This can be upgraded to have a TOW 2A. I think the TOW 2A is top attack. I think. I'm not sure. I'm sure you guys can let me know in the comments. But either way, pretty cheap tow vehicle. If it's in cover and it fires away, be a pretty good vehicle to make use of. So yeah, potential for that to join us. There is also the M1A2 SEP V2. This thing has smoke and the ability to laser designate, which is pretty cool. 2000 optics on it as well. Solid tank with 500 to 1000 millimeters of kinetic penetration. It also has access to heat round, which has 400 millimeters of heat penetration. It's okay. I'm not sure if it's necessarily worth it for 350 points when you could provide recon with something like the M7A2 and then have bigger tanks in the actual tank tab. So we are going to add the M7A2, I believe, just because it can be upgraded with busk armor, which makes it pretty hefty. We can have active protection to keep itself safe, and then we can add extra optics, and boom, would you look at that. We have 2400 optics, which is going to spot things from miles away. Literally. So I think we're going to add a couple of these for our mainline recon. We're obviously going to be using a lot of infantry here, and I'm going to bring in some of these with the TOW 2. So that's going to be my recon tab, and we'll just add some cavalry scouts here. So 4 cavalry scouts for 2 AMPVs. We'll do 1 for 1 on these because these are 6-man transports. So we can fit like 3 guys or 3 scout snipers in 1 Humvee. So I am going to just upgrade or add extra scout snipers without actually adding more Humvees here. We'll add more force recon with extra Humvees there as well. And I think that's going to be fine. So 3 force recon, 3 scout snipers, 4 cavalry scouts with those javelins, M7s for super long range recon, and the IFAV TOW. I mean, I'm only going to have one of them, but it's fine. The other way I could do this actually is just take this out and add more force recon. I honestly think that's probably a better shout. And then even more than that, what we can do is downgrade this Humvee. And then I can have another one with a machine gun there, one with a minigun. Cool, that'll do. Let's move on to the infantry. So in the infantry, there are some pretty good units to look at. The Cat Dragon squad's pretty nice. Double 50 cal, double Dragon 3. The Dragon 3, 800 meter range, but has 750 millimeters of heat penetration. This gets into range of enemy vehicles. It can dispatch of them pretty quickly indeed. So definitely something to keep an eye on. The range, of course, as I mentioned, is limited, but it matches the M2 Browning, so works pretty well in that regard. So the Cat Dragon's definitely a unit that I'm going to be adding. In terms of their transport, the Amtrak is kind of slow. It's not that slow, I suppose, with 70 forward speed, but I think the MTVR is going to be my choice here. And bringing it in with the armor, you might as well. It's free. So yeah, there you go. Just make sure you bring it in armored. You can also put a weapon on it, but I don't think I'm going to in this case. Then we have the Marine Raiders. These guys are really good at close range. They have the CQB version of the Mark 18, and they have the 4 shotguns and 2 grenade launchers. Really, really solid. Close range infantry. You can make them a standoff version, which is going to give them a couple of marksman rifles and a couple of machine guns with the Mark 18s instead. But I personally do like the door kicker variant. Yes, you've got worse AT, but it makes them specialized for pushing in at close range against enemy infantry. And it's a thick squad at 14 men. So definitely going to be able to take care of those pesky Russians. Can be airdropped in. Do have sprint, do have smoke. We're going to be bringing them in the Amtrak in this case because they're going to want to get close and they're going to need an armored platform in order to do that. So an upgraded Amtrak, thank you very much. There is the standard Marines, and these guys able to engage at a bit longer range. They are again another chunky squad at 13 men. They get 3 grenade launchers, so not too bad. I just didn't really ever find that these were worth the points so much. We do have the mech engineers. The mech engineers are going to kind of fulfill the same role as the Marine Raiders in that they're pretty good at taking on enemy infantry at close range. They also have a 200mm heat projectile that's good against infantry. So a decent option. Yeah, I prefer the Marine Raiders for that role. There's mech rifles. These are a smaller squad that can be brought in with the Bradleys. Oh, one thing that I do want to show off is the the M2A Bradley ESV. It's got this like plow on the front. It's pretty cool. I don't think this has any like practical application. It's just awesome that it's kind of added on the model there. I kind of like that for the engineer units. But yeah, if you want to bring in Bradleys, these are the best ways really to do so with the mechanized rifles. The other thing you got to bear in mind is that you don't have to bring in an infantry squad in order to bring in a transport. So if you just wanted the Bradley, you can bring it in separate. There's a mech rifle AA. These guys have stingers. The single stinger is not great. Like this manpad unit is not fantastic, but you kind of want to have a manpad unit, I believe. So we are going to definitely add the mech rifles. In terms of what unit they come in, I'm probably just going to stick them in the like M113s and keep things cheap. Like having armor and smoke on the M113 is potentially something you might want to do though. But we can add that if we have the spare points to do so afterwards. Small squads, pretty useful, just because the small is effective at 400 meters with the 200mm heat. It can accompany things like the Marine Raiders to do a little bit of extra damage. So I kind of like the small units, and you can bring them in Humvees, which are really cheap. So great for kind of spreading around and ambushing enemy transports. Tow team, this is just a single tow 2 missile, but if you want to have a tow 2 in a building that can fire at the 1,600 meter range there, this is going to be your option. I mean, of course you do have the cavalry scouts. The javelin can fire 1,200 meters, but the tow 2 is 1,600 meters, and that is significantly more. So a unit definitely to consider, and you can bring them in again, the Humvee. So cheap transports to bring those in. And you definitely want to make sure you add the B kits to these, because the B kit's free. To be honest, I kind of feel like they should have the B kit on by standard and then allow you to take it off should you want to for whatever reason. But yeah, in this case, always put the B kit on. Okay, so that's kind of like the majority of our units here. We've got our AA, we've got our AT, we've got our support for our mainline infantry, and we probably just want to add like mechanized rifles with Bradleys. So that's probably the last thing to do here. So the difference between the M2A3 and the M2A2 is optics, and you can also upgrade the engine. I think that's pretty much the only option there. I might also be able to, on the M2A3, you can also have active protection. Now, active protection is like super, super good. So, yeah, we're going to add some mech rifles with an M2A3 Bradley. I'm not sure if the upgraded engine's necessarily worth it, but we probably want to have at least the 200 mils of side armor there from the Busk reactive armor. We'll just go for the Busk 3. Why not? There we go. So I will want to have pretty much all of the cat dragons. Now the MTVR can bring in 16 men, so you can fit 2 cat dragons in one. So we're going to go for 4 cat dragons with 2 MTVRs. We're going to go for multiple Marine Raiders with multiple Amtraks. We're going to go for 4 mech rifles with 2 M113s. We'll add some s'mores. The Humvee can only take 4 men, so we're going to keep it like so. Maybe I want to drop off some of the cat dragons in favor of the toes and s'mores, is what I'm thinking. We can add like an extra small unit there. We can just use a different transport to bring that in if we want to. Cool, that'll do. Alright, vehicles. So, we have access to multiple different types of Abrams. There's going to be the M1A2 SEP 3. This is going to be your best tank. It is probably the best tank in the game right now, especially when you give it its Tusk 2 armor and trophy APS. This thing is an absolute beast. It has enough front armor to kind of tank most of the Soviet or Russian armor, sorry. And then it's got really, really good heat protection. Plus it's got the trophy active protection, which is going to stop basically all later gems until it runs out. So it's got 4 of those active protection abilities, and then the 2 smokes there as well to keep it safe. Really, really strong unit. With the 525 to 1050 millimeter kinetic penetration at 1400 meters range. So, yeah, definitely going to pop both of those in. This is pretty much your equivalent to the Armata for the Americans. You can also do the same for the M1A2 SEP V2. So you put the trophy, put the reactive armor on it, and wha-bam, chuck in a couple of those. You can do it the Tusk 2 armor package for these, but that's not really good enough. You want the active protection where you can get it. Active protection's super important. Now for the M60, this is going to be your option for close range kinetic engagements at a cheap cost. These can be really useful for taking out lighter vehicles and also kind of overwhelming higher value targets. So that's what you're going to be wanting to use those for potentially. But you're going to want to click through these basically and find the ones that can protect themselves better. These ones do get electronic countermeasures in the form of the jammers, which can be really, really useful. So yeah, just bear that in mind. You're also going to want to make sure that you check all of the penetration. So for example here, the M1A1 FEP does get the 500 to 1000 millimeters of kinetic compared to the M1A1 HC, which is 450 to 900. That's also important. The heat is more or less always going to be the same here, I think. There's also the options to bring in like the LAV AT, but this is a normal 2A or a normal TOW 2. Actually, it's a 2A. So I'm not sure again if it's top attacks, but no, it's the 2B that top attacks. There we go. Yeah. So it normally labels it there. Yeah, the 2B or top attacks. So there you go. Today I learned. But the ATM, I guess maybe might be an option here. We do have the javelins for top attacks, so it's not a big deal. What you do really want out of this tab is just like your big chunky armor, and having the jammers in here is really, really nice. So we can pop a jammer on this and put the Tusk armor package on. And we're looking pretty scary with the M1A1 HC actually. It has less penetration, but I think just because they're cheaper and you can get so many more of them, probably worth it, to be honest. Because this one can't get the active protection. The extra ECM there is just nice. So we'll pop another SEP V3 trophy in. Actually, let's just downgrade one of them so we can have 4 SEP V2 trophies and M1A1. So we just got a massive amount of heavy armor that we can build up over the game if we want to. Moving into the support tab. LAV ADs, super good. Definitely give them armor and smoke so they can protect themselves. These are great for hunting down enemy helicopters and just being a pain against enemy vehicles, because the Gal 12 is really strong. It's got 60 to 120 millimeters of heat, so it can pretty much rip through light vehicles very effectively as well. There's the LAVL, which is going to be your sort of light supply vehicle. 2,500 supply. You can run it around really fast because it's a tracked vehicle. You are going to want to make sure that it has its armor package so it can survive should it be shot at, but otherwise that's fine. Great to have some of those. In this battle group, I'm probably going to be adding the LVSR in order to create my big supply dumps. So we're just going to have one of those so that we can bring in the 15,000 supply. And we'll of course put the V-kit armor on it to make it just a little bit more tanky in case it gets hit by a bomb or something, or the artillery lands nearby. We have the artillery. There's the LAVM. 81mm mortars just aren't that good, so not really worth paying attention to. Paladin, it's okay. Well, actually, it's kind of garbage. The dispersion on these seemed really bad on their standard rounds when I used it. The laser guided rounds are obviously going to be generally good, but yeah, it requires that laser designation, which can be kind of awkward to get sometimes. 120mm mortars, actually pretty decent, so something that's definitely worth considering. There's the HIMARS, which can come in a bunch of different ways. People generally recommend the Prism over the ATACMS, mainly because the Prism is HE and can basically damage everything, including like infantry, whereas the ATACMS is cluster and therefore does barely any damage to infantry, but still it does do a lot of damage to armored targets. It's only 400mm of heat penetration, but it's top attack, so it will defeat most targets. But yeah, in this case we are going to add a couple of these with the Prism. PVAD's actually pretty nice unit for dealing with enemy helicopters and also shooting at light ground targets. The main thing I will say with the PVADs is it's great seed bait at the moment. It's not really an intentional mechanic, but having something that's cheap with radar to soak seed missiles so that your longer range missiles like the Patriot can take advantage, really solid thing to do. So having a couple of PVADs in your battle group I think is necessary. There's access to the M270. This thing can have some pretty nice launchers. In this one in particular you get 2 ATACMS, whereas in the HIMARS you only get 1, so worth bearing that in mind, whereas you can get 2 Prism rockets. So that's why it's worth using the HIMARS for the Prism and the M270 for the ATACMS if you're going to do that. But in this case, like high explosive warheads probably better, or cluster, whatever you need. Cluster is actually probably not a bad idea to help you defeat the Russian armor. So I keep trying almost saying Soviet because I'm so used to like Steel Division 2 and Warno. Anyway, M54-8A3 is another option for supply, but it's a bit slower because it's tracked. There's the Linebacker, which is okay, but you're probably better off using a Shorad if you're going to go with that, just because I believe it's a little bit better. This actually has Hellfires, which is pretty cool, and it can target vehicles and helicopters with that Hellfire. That's an interesting choice. Now I think about it. I'm tempted to add it, but I think what I'm going to do is we're going to add the M270 MNRS with cluster and then the Patriot. The Patriot, pretty important thing to have. And we're going to go with the 4 missile variant. You don't need a self-defense package. Actually, it might be good to chuck a machine gun on it. Just because if units come in at you from the back line, it's going to help it stay alive just that little bit longer, which could be very useful. So we'll chuck that in. We're definitely going to bring in at least 2 Patriots. Bring in at least 2 PVADs. We bring in at least 2 HIMARS. We bring in at least a couple of LAVLs, a couple of LAV ADs, and that leaves us with just under 100 points. So not quite sure what I want to spend that on. Like, that's going to be too expensive. We could always just throw in the extra supply vehicles in case. Having plenty of Patriots is kind of important. I'm not sure if I want to kind of take these down a notch. Maybe we just have 1 Lab AD, and then I can sneak in a third Patriot there. Yeah, that would do. Alright, let's move on to the Heli tab. Now, as I mentioned in the Russian Battlegroup video, a lot of people I've seen use the Cobras for air-to-air. They use the Sidewinder or the Sidewinder to attack enemy aircraft. I think this one, can this one carry more? Pretty sure there's one of these can carry quite a lot. Or maybe it's just the 2, but regardless, it's a pretty cheap way to get an air-to-air helicopter with some Hydra rockets you can then use to attack ground infantry. So the 20mm plus the Hydra is going to kill infantry pretty fast, and then the Sidewinder is just useful for hitting enemy helicopters. So yeah, this is good for hunting enemy helicopters. And then you got the Viper, which is more of your sort of air-to-ground variant. So you get those juicy Hellfires. And you can put a lot of Hellfires on these, and still Sidewinders if you want them. So in this case, I think what we're going to do is probably just put loads of Hellfires on. That'll do. Boom. Super expensive though if you do that, that's for sure. We could also empty it like that and just have this as a dedicated Hellfire platform. Yeah, it's probably a better option. So we got this one for the rockets, this one for the Hellfires. Yeah, that works. Then we got the Venom. This Venom is actually kind of nice for lifting supply around a place. It can also be added with miniguns and rockets, so it can provide pretty good support against targets on the ground that don't have AA support. So that is something definitely to consider, and you can use it to drop infantry to the front line. So I'm going to pop in at least 1 Venom. The other thing we could do, now I think about it, is take the LVSR out of here and then pop in the Osprey or the King Stallion, Super Stallion, in order to bring in supply for us. And both of these can be equipped with miniguns. This one gets 2 miniguns, this one gets 1 minigun. You see the minigun just on that side, whereas this has the minigun on both sides. The Osprey has the minigun underneath if you add it, which is pretty cool. This thing's actually really nice because it has a sort of good, I don't know what you'd call it, but basically it can aim in all directions. Yeah, Osprey is pretty cool. Pretty cool unit indeed. I think in this case we're just going to add an extra couple of helicopters and maybe just take out the Venom. I don't think we need the Venom. We're just going to keep it as 4 Cobras. Okay, moving on to the air tab. So for the air tab, F-18, really strong. We've got access to the Harriers. Harriers can be useful particularly for dumb bombs or rocket strikes. I've seen them used for the Snake Eyes before, these drag bombs. The other one's the Prowler. Prowler, really good for dealing with enemy seed. That's what they're there for. So in the pylons, you probably want the harm, and then out of pylons, you probably want ECM. That way you get extra ECM. Pretty nice, while still having the ability to seed, and it's pretty cheap to do so. Then you want a aircraft that's pretty good at air-to-air, and yeah, your F-18 is probably the one to do that. So we will still give it, we'll give it the AMRAAM for the long range. We'll give it a, probably just fuel tanks, to be honest, in this slot, because we don't really need air to ground option. And then for the outer, could just keep it empty, because it comes with 2 Sidewinders standard. Then you get extra AMRAAMs. How many Sparrows do you get? It's the same amount. AMRAAMs are really good. I don't know if it's necessary to... Yeah, I guess that's a relatively good anti-air option. There's also the F-35. Now the F-35, it does come with 3 AMRAAMs standard, and then it comes with options for different, either extra AMRAAMs or options for different guided bombs. So Stormbreaker, the JSO, the LJDAM, and which is the 1000 kilogram, and the 500 kilogram. I'm a big fan of this guided one. I think it's perfectly fine. Pop a couple of those in. Whack an F-35 in there. There's also the KC-130, which is good for airdropping. You can add Griffin missiles to this if you want to, which are air-to-ground missiles. They are on one of the wings, I think. Or are they attached underneath or something? I'm not sure quite where those come out. But there's also the Hellfires, which are definitely on the wings, and Stormbreakers, which are there. I'm not sure where these Griffin missiles are. Maybe they come out the sides? I have no idea. I'm sure you guys will let me know in the comments. Regardless, it's basically going to be primarily used for airdropping if you create an airdropping deck. For me, for now, what I'm going to do, just going to add another F-18 Hornet, and that's going to push that to 1000 points, and boom, we're done. So we got 2 air superiority aircraft with Sidewinders AMRAAMs, and then we got F-35, which has the ability to engage air-to-air, also has the laser-guided bombs, and then we got a Prowler for seed. And that's going to be it for the American Battlegroup. This looks very different to the one that I made previously, but knowing what I know since having played like the preview of the open beta, I think this is pretty solid. We've got some extra Bradleys and stuff in the infantry tab if we need them for sort of lighter vehicles, but you're definitely going to want to have all of these like SEPs with the trophy systems, because if you can build these up throughout the game, it becomes really, really difficult to deal with, especially when you've got Patriots as your AA, which probably need to be made more expensive, to be honest. And you've also got like decent support in the form of like HIMARS and MRS, and really good infiltration units like the Force Recon and Scout Snipers, really good for throwing in the back line. But yeah, that's going to be it for now. Feel free to ask any questions in the comments and stuff. But hopefully this has given you an idea of how to build an American deck in the open beta, which is available on the 31st of January. That's it for now. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.